It is Friday Eve, Thursday night for those who would like to keep track of the days of the week. I'm Angel Martinez, your host at Broad Street South here. And tonight it is episode 180 and from Pick Swap Media. We have Sean Barnard with us this evening as we'll get into some hoops talk with the Sixers and maybe a little more around the NBA. So Sean is standing by in the green room along with everyone else. Also, I thank those who are listening on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game. Thank you for listening in. And the way you can listen in, as the apps are being developed, you can go right through the website, broadstsouth.com. That's broadstsouth.com. Click on the Sports Radio 102.9 tab. Click on the audio as you see at the bottom of the page, and then you're good to go. So if you're on the road somewhere, you can't catch the show itself live, you can always catch it on the radio as we are on right now. And by the way, speaking of the radio, we will have 40 minutes of video time. We'll have 20 minutes bonus time on the radio. So once again, if you want to catch us on the radio side for an additional 20 minutes, make sure you go to broadstsouth.com, click on the sports radio link, and then catch the audio from the bottom there. You'll see it right under picture frame, and you'll be all set. Along with that, the basketball league is in full swing. Games have already been played. We're leading into week number 2. And with that being said, the basketball league's 5th season is in full swing. You can catch all 626 games from 49 teams across the U.S. and Canada exclusively on TBL TV. And by using the promo Broad Street, just one word, Broad Street, you will save 15% on your TBL subscription. Save 15% on a game pass, which lets you watch a single game, or save 15% on a team pass, which lets you watch all 24 regular season home games and away games of your favorite team, and or save 15% overall on the league pass, which lets you watch all 626 TBL games, including All-Star Weekend, right from the backwoods of Philadelphia out there in Lehigh, PA. So you'll be able to watch that in the entire playoffs. So again, use the coupon, which is limited to one per customer. You cannot use it multiple times, so it is one per customer. And visit tbltv.tv from your computer or your mobile device and put in the coupon Broad Street and save yourself 15% on the TBL Game Pass, Team Pass, or League Pass. Hashtag a different league and where the spirit of the game lives. So with that being said, we're going to get into some basketball again tonight. We'll get into some football talk afterwards. And also, where is Aaron Rodgers going to land? For some people, do they really care much of where Aaron's going to be? And some people get excited. We've heard it over and over again. Where will Aaron land? And he just came from this dark retreat. Who knows what's going on in Aaron Rodgers land? But we'll get into that and some other things right on the other side. So I thank you once again for joining us here on Broad Street South. We can't wait to get this show started. Once again, I'm Angel Martinez. This is episode 180, and welcome to the show. And the myth, the legend, already getting fired up there in his Sixers jersey, bringing in Doc J this evening. It is the man, the myth, the legend, Mike Fuji. Fuji, what's happening tonight?
What's going on, Bryce Harper? Back in Clearwater, getting ready. Sixers on a roll, three in a row. NFL tampering, Birds kicking it off. Hopefully Howie will. I got to get on the horn to Howie on the bat phone. Bring back CD Deuce real quick. Let's get the party rocking. Sean Barnard kicking off with some Sixers. Angel, how are you? Happy Friday Eve to everybody. What's going on?
I'm doing good, but Fuji, I'm starting to believe there's a little bit of rust going on with you, because this is about the second week where you just about get ready to be fired up, and then you choke yourself out. So I don't know what's going on there, but it'll get back to you. I understand you had some good time off. I get it, but don't worry. It'll come back to you. And listen, now introducing the rest of the gang here as we are all on this evening. It is the national correspondent, and do not pay any attention whatsoever to the sweatshirt that he is wearing. But Ryan, how are you this evening? And there's no voice. You're muted there, Slick.
Can't hear you. Turn up the volume.
Just try it again.
Pump up the volume, my man.
What about now?
Now, there you go. Oh, boy.
I'm Ryan.
There we
It's great
go.
to be with everybody this evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, guys.
There you go.
Yeah,
Loud and clear.
Great to have Sean Barnard this
Go
evening
ahead.
to talk some Sixers, get into a little bit of, Phillies talk a little
And he
football.
disappeared.
There goes Houdini, disappeared.
Just like that on the live show. But it happens. Well, with that being said, why don't we bring on our sports contributor, Sean Kilrain. Sean, how are you this evening?
Sean.
Pretty good, man. What's up, guys? Just chilling, looking forward to some training baseball and some Sixers talk with Sean Barnard. Ready to see what he has to say about a couple questions I have. So how's everybody doing?
Good, and last but least, I should say, and very least, even Sean's getting upset in the green room there. Sean, unfortunately, I'll bring you on here in a second, but we have to bring in what we call the Tampa correspondent, the Blue Jay himself. It is the young Dylan Spalding. Dylan, yes, we see you sporting the Toronto Blue Jay St. Patrick's Day hat, whatever. Dylan, how are you this evening?
Good to be back on, guys. It's been a while. Spring training's in full swing.
Amen.
Alex Manoah, Kevin Gosman, Vladdy, Bo, all the boys are back in Dunedin, on the corner of Beltrees and Douglas. I mean, how can you not love this time of year? World Baseball Classic going on right now. We got some Orlando Magic basketball. They're swinging right now. Let's rock and roll, baby. I love this time of year. I'm fired up.
There's also a guy back in Clearwater, goes by MV3, Bryce Harper. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I also like to thank the Phillies, not only for game one of the season by putting the split squad together, but just giving me the leftovers, which I was not a happy camper about, but whatever, I'll be able to catch another game before it's all over. But with that being said, it is Sean _Barnard 1 on Twitter. If you guys want to follow him again, from Pick Swap Media, taking some time out from his busy schedule to be with us this evening. It is on the screen, Sean Barnard. Sean, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, what's going on, fellas? I appreciate you for having me on. I'm excited to talk some Sixers.
Nothing much, man.
The final stretch of the year. So, yeah, I'm gassed up and I'm ready to chat.
All right, well, listen, pay no mind to the guy just to the above left of you with a KC. He's got to rub it in because it's just one of those things.
He's a ring chaser. He chases. He's the bandwagon guy on the show.
It just works that way. But listen, Sean, we know that the Sixers right now seem to be one of the hotter teams in the NBA. And it can go both ways because they can go hot, they can go cold, right? So we know at this point, 43-22, and it's a great probability that hopefully the Sixers continue on this path with the way Harden's been playing. It seems like of Harden of yesteryear, that he's finally getting his feet under him. This team is finally gelling all together. My biggest question is, are we going to see a playoff run? And if we don't, which I'm pretty sure is going to be asked by the panel, would this then be the final season for Doc Rivers?
Yeah, I think for sure on that one. This is definitely a chips in the middle kind of season where there has to be at least getting past the second round, or there's going to be some big changes that go down, and Doc Rivers is definitely the first name there. And there's kind of been the excuses so far in the tenure. There was the Ben Simmons situation, Joel Embiid being hurt last year, made a big impact on them not getting by there. The excuses we're out of time for them. Like, this is the window. They need to find out how to win now. And I am optimistic that this will be the year that we can at least get past the second round. And I do like the way the team is playing right now, and I think they're peaking at the right time. So I'm optimistic that it will be the case, but there's definitely going to be some repercussions if it isn't.
All right, we also know that, as I get my second question here, the next game that they have coming up is against the Portland Trailblazers, who are right now 31-35. But we've seen a lot of teams, and it seems like on every major league level. So it's just not on the NBA. We've seen it everywhere where you have teams that are below 500 that they know either if the guys are looking to get walked in, now the newest thing with the NBA that we saw last season, or if they're making a playoff run. It's one or the two. So the Trailblazers have had their issues this year. Obviously, that team is not built around the way they wanted it. Last year, they seemed to be a little bit better off. So do the Sixers win tomorrow night against the Portland Trailblazers?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they're on a roll right now. 4-1 in the 5-game road trip that they just came off. Those were real deal 4 great wins for the team. So I think they're riding the momentum. They're better than this Trailblazers team. They don't match up particularly well. I mean, Dame Lillard's still one of the best guards in the entire NBA and quietly having a very effective season. So he's going to be a challenge to stop. I think he's going to put up some big numbers tomorrow. But overall, the Sixers just have some too much talent for the Blazers to be able to take them down. And I think the streak keeps rolling in Philadelphia.
All right, Fuji?
Sean, I want to touch on. I was reading an article by Keith Pompeo, who covers the Sixers, and he said with the exception of like Shake Milton, Korkmaz, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid, there's some cohesiveness in this locker room. It's just like a different breed with it's like these guys are coming together. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's kind of been the biggest thing that I've noticed of late with this team is there's still plenty to nitpick as far as defensively, their switches and little things around the edges that they're not doing 100% and that can still be improved. But what stood out to me is just this team kind of having like a new mentality and a new like finding a way to win on an every night basis, which has not always been the case with this Sixers team. There's been nights where you flip on the TV and it looks like a night where they don't even want to show up or play and they're kind of going through the motions. It really hasn't been that way this year. They've just kind of like have this determination and this scrap towards the end of the game, which I think Philadelphia is going to fall in love with as we get coming during the stretch. And it's huge that they're showing this now, and that as long as that translates to the postseason, that's a big deal because we can talk about all the X's and O's or the personnel decisions. There has to be that desire, that will to win that hasn't always been there, and I'm optimistic that it looks like it's actually here this season.
Also, I wanted to touch on the new addition of Jalen McDaniels. I mean, it seems like he's fitting in rather well himself. Coming over and during the trade deadline.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. He's an interesting player. We're gonna get the Matisse Thybulle homecoming tomorrow for the return with the Trailblazers, so that'll be interesting. Obviously, they shipped him out in the trade to get McDaniels, but he's a cool little player. He's a more balanced two-way kind of piece. He has some offensive game. He's still 6'9", athletic. He's a lob threat, which is a cool addition to have in this team. They haven't really had anybody that can kind of just screen and go up and get it off the lob in the way that McDaniels is doing. He's very versatile and brings the energy, and on the rebounds is a big deal because this is a pretty poor rebounding team. This has been one of their weaknesses, and McDaniels is a guy who's pretty content in his role to do the little things, go up, grab boards, play defense, and he's kind of doing whatever they ask from him. And we're seeing trust from Doc Rivers in him, which has been a little bit of a surprise to me. I was a little nervous about where the minutes would come from for this guy, but Doc's been rolling him out there, and he's been capitalizing on the opportunity. So a great sign, and looks to be a real solid midseason addition.
Now, Sean, does Joel Embiid have a realistic shot to be an MVP? He doesn't see himself as it, but I know he's thinking about it.
Yeah, he's definitely for sure in the running and in the conversation. It looks like Nikola Jokic kind of definitely has the lead in the race, unfortunately. But, I mean, there does feel like there's kind of been a little bit of a resistance to that of late. And, I mean, Jokic last night probably had his worst game of the season. Extremely poor defensively. Shot like 5 for 12 from the field. Didn't get his usual kind of fill up the stat sheet and was really taken advantage of on the defensive side of things down the stretch. So I do think there's been a little bit of a shift of late. I mean, Embiid has the resume. He's now leading the NBA in scoring at 33.3 points per game. This is a guy who led the NBA in scoring last year, then comes back and adds 3 more points per game to his season average, which is just nutty stuff. And leading the Sixers on both sides of the court. It's impressive. For 3 seasons now, I've kind of watched him play and thought, like, this might be the peak Joel Embiid. Like, this might be as good as it gets, and he just goes and finds a way to improve on it. So he absolutely deserves it. This team needs him. He's extremely valuable to this team, and I would argue the best player in the NBA. So I think he deserves it. I don't think he's going to get it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Now, what about Paul Reed? You think Paul Reed?
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on him?
I'm a big Paul Reed guy. I've been team just play him, let him play through mistakes, let him learn would be my philosophy for how his developmental process should go. The Montrezl Harrell experiment is the plug's been pulled on that. He just kind of doesn't have the legs left in the tank or isn't the player that he once was, which is disappointing because I think if he was the peak Montrezl Harrell, and he's only 29 years old, so he's not ancient, but he just doesn't have the lift, the burst that he once did. And in comparison, Paul Reed has kind of come in and capitalized on every opportunity that he's got. To his credit, he has gotten a little bit better and just kind of taking the nonsense out of his game, the unnecessary fouls, the being too scatterbrained and sporadic. He's calmed down a little bit. So I do think Paul Reed's the guy. I also think PJ Tucker is going to get some real burn as the backup 5 in a small ball lineup come playoff time.
Okay, thanks.
Dylan, I don't know if you had any questions.
Yeah, Sean, I don't want to act like I'm a Sixers fan because I really am not. So my question is actually going to be more on a younger team in the NBA, which is my Orlando Magic. We've really improved this season. We've seen a lot of improvement, especially by our young, obviously phenom talent, if you will, in Paulo Banchero. So my question is to you is, where do you see a team like the Orlando Magic fitting in, especially in the future for the East, where you see the East kind of getting depleted, if you will, especially this trade deadline where you saw the Nets, like a team like the Nets, really get rid of a lot of their star players and kind of going into almost a rebuild, if you will. So where do you see the Magic kind of fitting in with the future of that East Conference?
Yeah, I like what the Magic are building, and I think they're kind of figuring out where exactly they fit into. I like stylistically what they're doing. They just got all these big bodies, these 6'8" to 6'10" wings that can switch, handle the ball, do a little bit of everything. Franz Wagner's a personal favorite of mine. Love the way he plays. Markelle Fultz has brought a lot to that team coming down there and the impact he makes. So they're a fun team to watch. I think they're in that process of kind of like figuring out who the true building blocks are, because there's a lot of good options down there, to be honest. There's a lot of good young talent. So who are the true core pieces? It's a little bit similar to kind of what I think the Raptors tried to do, and the Raptors who are it's kind of blowing up on them in the way that like their primetime guys ended up not being primetime guys. And by that, I mean like Pascal Siakam is not quite the grade A superstar that I think they wanted him to be. So the Magic are, I think, trying to figure out who exactly is that. And Paolo definitely has a strong resume for it. Again, I like Franz Wagner a lot. Jonathan Isaac is ashamed about the injury too. So, but a good youthful team. I think they're going to keep probably these next like year or two figuring out where the pieces are and then going to get what they need to add to that. But they got a bright future for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Raptors. The team that I really thought about right now, where the team is at currently, they remind me a lot of that Phoenix Suns team. You know, a lot of talent, a lot of young talent. Do you kind of agree with that statement there? Because they remind me a lot where they're at right now with that Phoenix Suns team kind of early in 2018-17, where they just kind of racked up a bunch of these number one picks and young talent and such and really kind of built a dynasty through that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the tactic that you got to go for team construction, because as much as we all dive into like the scouting reports and the college tape and anything, there's not like an exact science to it. So it's like if you have all these kind of like swings of the plate or bites of the apple where you're getting all these like young talented prospects, some of them are kind of bound to pan out. And for the Sixers, for comparison, like there's always going to be misses. I mean, we're talking about Fultz didn't work out here. Ben Simmons, we saw that situation. Jahlil Okafor, a top pick. Nerlens Noel didn't turn into what it was hoped it would be. So there's always going to be kind of misses. So the fact that they have like all these attempts, all these picks, and all these like just young guys that they're getting a true chance to look at is always a good thing. So they're doing it the right way, and I think it's on track sooner rather than later.
Now you just brought up Ben Simmons, which is always a fun name, to talk about. But was that so? If we are being honest here, was that the biggest bust for Brooklyn?
Yeah, I mean, so it's such a weird conversation. I mean, Ben Simmons there's like 5 different strangest storylines connected to him. But as far as like the trade for Brooklyn, they kind of had their hands tied in the same way the Sixers did with James Harden wanting to come to Philly. So it was one of those that was kind of bound to happen, but he really is just a shell of himself. From even like Ben was, yes, like I guess he falls into the bust category at this point, but this is a guy who was an all-star, who was a defensive player of the year candidate, who at a point in time was a positive basketball player who brought stuff to a team. And to see what he is now, like he doesn't move the same way. There's no threat of a shot. His averages are all way down. They can barely find time to put him on the court. So they're in a tough spot. They're going to have to swallow a lot of money or something to get off of him if that is the case. But yeah, I'm honestly kind of surprised just how bad he is. I've never been a Ben Simmons guy, but there used to be way more in the tank than the version of him that exists now.
Yeah, because it seems like, and again, you feel switching gears here for a second because it's almost like the comparison. 2 different people. You got Carson Wentz, obviously, and then Ben Simmons. But it seems like both of them, the careers here in Philly just didn't pan out the way it should have. I think with Ben, he just couldn't take the Philly fan base. And I guess when he got to New York, he thought it was going to be a little different when he got up there. But as far as like your comparison between New York, Chicago, Boston, I mean, it's the same feeding frenzy. There's no difference when it comes to that. So I think with Ben, it's a shame. If it was true, and again, we've heard so many different, I guess, conflicting reports when it came to Ben. It's a shame that he couldn't play much better as a person and as a team player, because you just weren't going to get out of there in New York. And then you see New York obviously having a fire sale. I mean, that is completely dismantled. And then also stay in New York, you got the Knicks, who had a much better season last year compared to this season. And so I don't know and I know we're talking Sixers as well, but what do you think was the difference between the Knicks last season to this season?
I mean, for the Knicks specifically, it's been the Jalen Brunson addition has been the biggest thing. I think everybody was a little bit surprised by them going all in for Brunson and him kind of being the guy that prized possession, but he's been amazing. He's been up there with the best guards in the Eastern Conference all year. Julius Randle's always kind of a unique guy who can shoot you in or out of a game. But they've done a good job of kind of becoming a marketable place to land. I think New York is on the track for trying to stick their nose in and get that next big name free agent that shakes loose. It feels like they've been trying forever, but they finally kind of have an infrastructure ready to take one in and a team ready to build around it. So I think Jalen Brunson's been the biggest difference maker, and he's exceeded my expectations, as I think is the case with a lot of people.
No, listen, I don't know if you have any more time here left with us. I know you have a busy schedule, but Dylan, you talked about Orlando, and I've been watching Orlando as well because they are a young up and coming team, and I do like the way, as much as I like to tease Dylan about Orlando Magic, but they have actually been playing I think a lot better even than their own expectations this season. So Orlando seems to be doing all the right things at this point to get that team together. Young coach, a lot of young players. I know a couple of nights ago they took the loss because they had 3 of their starters on the bench. So could Orlando, and I'm pretty sure Dylan would be happy if so, but could Orlando see themselves in the playoffs maybe within the next 2 seasons, if not come next season, or even as a walk-in this year?
Yeah, I think probably not that soon, but they're in the mix and on the right track. And I also it's hard when you kind of are in that transition. I think we're looking at it with the Thunder right now, that it's like you got to be careful when you kind of flip the switch to trying to win and make sure you're not taking yourself out of restocking assets and adding more quality players. Like, to be honest, the Thunder right now, I think, could be a playoff team in the Western Conference based on how tight the West, or how open the West is and how close it is in the standings. But they're kind of not trying to do that. They still want their chance at a high pick, maybe getting the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. But so I think the Magic want to be careful not to walk down that path and kind of try and go all in and start to win too early, because then you lower your ceiling by doing that. So it is a balance. As much as you want to win right now, you got to make sure you do it the right way.
Yeah, and I was going to say, being a Magic fan, man, we've sseen that a lot of times. We've done that, especially with the Aaron Gordon teams. Like, we went way too quick, got in as an 8 seed, and did nothing in the playoffs. So, yeah, I think this year especially, like, we've dealt with so many injuries this season as well. Like, we've had so many of our big-name guys who have been out, and I really think that's also taken away a lot from this team. And I don't know if that – do you feel like once everybody does get healthy, like, this team will be able to gel a lot more, especially more than they are right now?
I think they'll figure out the key pieces. They're going to be an active team in the trade market and just roster turnover market for the next couple years. Because even when you look at like the guard position, like Jalen Suggs is another guy I'm a big fan of. I've always liked his game, but like, does he fit with the Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony, and all the other kind of bodies down there? And same, you can look position by position. There's just like so much talent that some of these guys are also going to look to try and go to another team, get an expanded role, or maybe just they don't see themselves aligned with it. So I don't think the pieces are expected to fully fit together at this point, but the Magic, it's now their job to kind of sort through which ones are the integral parts, which one can we ship out and get guys that like complement each other better, which is a good problem to have for an NBA team.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Sean, I just have one quick question for Sean before you go. Do you see the Knicks being a dark horse in these playoffs, like just a team that could come in and upset somebody along the way?
Yeah, you said the
The
Nets.
way they're playing. The Knicks.
The Knicks. Oh, yeah. I actually do. I think the Knicks are better than they're kind of given credit. They had that 9-game winning streak, which was impressive. They don't have like a true weakness in the team. Like, they're pretty balanced from top to bottom on the roster. The just concern is kind of that lack of star power. Like a Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson duo while they're playing great basketball, like that's just not quite the top end talent that gets it done in a postseason series. Like when you compare Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle to say Joel Embiid and James Harden, like there's a pretty significant drop off in those duos. But I do think they're complete as a team. Tom Thibodeau is going to coach them as hard as he possibly can and have them ready to play. So I think with the right matchup, like they're no cakewalk. Like if it's a Sixers-Knicks matchup in the first round, that's a series I think probably goes 6, which is not what you're kind of looking for from the Sixers' perspective.
Yeah.
Ryan, I don't know if you had a question. I know you've been out, Ryan, but I don't know if you had a question.
Before my PC explodes. Just wanted to get off a question here. The Philadelphia 76ers, their starting 5 is going to have to carry him again this year throughout the playoffs. I always play devil's advocate. Their bench doesn't scare anybody. It happened last year. It happened the year before that. They really haven't done anything in the way of making deals to bring it on a board that would scare them. Don't you think that if Embiid can't get to the finals or at least the conference championship, that he's gone after this year?
I don't think it's out of the question, but I think he's got a little bit longer leash than that. I think what happens with James Harden is the biggest determinant. I do think Harden and Embiid have genuinely clicked and like playing with each other, which is key in this. But I do, like I said, I think there's going to be big changes if there isn't past the second round here. I hope Embiid's not the guy. I will say, like, there's almost a part of me that, like, would get it if we get to this point because he's been the stabling force in this franchise more so than anything. He's been through 3 GMs, 2 coaches, over 150 players at this point, and it's always just been Joel Embiid as the player. I mean, Furkan Korkmaz is the second longest tenured member of the Sixers here. So there's still concerns with this team. They're not perfect. As far as the bench thing, like moving Maxey to the bench for the stretch was their way to try and combat that and figure out a way to bring secondary scoring. It didn't fully work in the way it was hoped, so that's still definitely a concern. But yeah, there will be big changes if they don't get past the second round. I sure hope it's not Joel.
All right. Well, listen, Sean, I thank you for taking the time being with us tonight. And don't forget, everyone, you can follow Sean at Sean_Barnard1 on Twitter and also for Pick Swap Media. And I don't want to give it complete justice because you can do a better job, Sean. So please let everyone know how they can follow you and keep up with your content as well.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you guys for having me on. It was great to talk with all you guys. And yeah, you can check out me on Twitter at Sean_Barnard1. Check out Pick Swap Media for all my Sixers and all across the board kind of thoughts, NBA on there. You can check out the YouTube channel. And then my written work you can read on Philly Sports Network and do some college and general NBA on sportskeeda.com as well. So, yeah, give that a check out. And you can kind of see my Twitter as kind of my centralized kind of location for everything. So make sure to drop a follow.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm the same way too, so don't feel bad. Twitter is like my definitely go-to to everything else.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for coming on, Sean. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
All right,
appreciate it, man. Thanks for answering my questions.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Have a good one, Sean.
You're welcome.
All right, John, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. So as we continue here on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game and with the rest of the crew here this evening, and I'll fix a banner here in a second, so I'll put that back up there on the screen. But so again, the Sixers right now, if we look at it, the Sixers can third in the East. Sixers could possibly, we could be talking about a playoff run. I don't know how deep we've been looking for many years. At this point, we don't know how much longer it's going to take before the Sixers can finally become contenders again. The most people right now, and I think almost everyone at this point, whether you look at, the other media outlets that are out there, but it seems like the Celtics are the front runners everybody's picking for an NBA championship. And Dylan, I guess I'll bring that over to you. Do you believe, from as far as what's being stated, that the Celtics were probably would run away with the NBA championship, or one of the teams over from the West Coast, definitely not the Lakers, but one of the other ones out there like Golden State, could they be almost like a smaller dark horse to win it?
Yeah, I mean, Boston's by far the best team in the East. I mean, there's no question in my mind. Boston's probably the most complete Eastern Conference team right now. I think that's enough said right there. A team that would scare me in the East is probably Cleveland. Got that star player. They're a fast-paced team. They every time I watch them play Boston, it just doesn't seem like they're phased at all when they play Boston. Look at the box score. That's all I'm going to say. Look at the box score.
Donovan Mitchell, man, he's a pretty good player.
He's adding a guy like Donovan Mitchell, and don't get me wrong, big Colin Sexton fan, and I love the way he plays and stuff out on the court, but when you bring a guy like Donovan Mitchell, it just completely changes the culture for your team. And Cleveland hasn't had that since LeBron. And although Donovan isn't on the same level, I think, as LeBron in terms of the, stature and, his following and such, Mitchell's a great player. And to add a guy like that is huge, especially in the Eastern Conference that right now is depleted. It's a depleted conference outside of Milwaukee and Boston and Philly, really, honestly, at this point. So Cleveland's an interesting team right now to watch out for. I honestly think it's going to be a Western Conference team that wins the NBA championship this year. I really do. And Golden State's a team that has been started out really slow this year. They've really gotten things going here, and I think they're going to be a team to watch out for in the Western Conference. I think, especially with all the stuff that's happened with the Grizzlies, I think they're done. I think all that Ja Morant stuff is just going to – it's a shame. Ja Morant basically, I think, killed that team. I mean, I don't want to say it, and it's even – probably the wrong word to say because of what he ended up carrying in that video, a gun. But that just it just messes up that culture, and it just messes up everything with that locker room. So I like the Warriors. I'm gonna go Phoenix though as a team to watch out for. If KD can get healthy, hopefully by the time the playoffs start. I don't know where he's at right now because he just had this kind of freak accident
injury.
Yeah, he had a freak accident.
His ankle. He's out 3 to 6 weeks now.
Yeah,
I thought I heard 2 to 3 earlier.
Yeah, that's a big loss for them. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a Western Conference team. I think the Western Conference is much more deeper. But, I mean, Boston definitely looks like the team to possibly run away with it in the East. I mean, they're probably the most complete team right now in probably the NBA. But if the Suns can get healthy at the right time, if they can get past the first round, which – right now, they're scheduled to play the Warriors, which would be a ridiculous matchup. I mean, that would be a ridiculous first-round matchup to start out the playoffs. We'll see. I mean, Phoenix could be a team that could make a run for the championship.
I think Milwaukee still can make a run. I mean,
yeah, Milwaukee has that experience. So,
I mean, just coming off 2 years of winning the NBA title 2 years ago.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. And nobody really talks about Milwaukee very much either. It just sometimes people forget Milwaukee's the number one seed in that conference. Like they're a great team, and I think sometimes people look at some of these other teams with some of these flashier players, and people don't realize Giannis is kind of the standard bearer in that conference. He's he's a guy that everybody is trying to run up to, and they're just taking over that conference. So Milwaukee.
They got a great bench too.
They do. Oh, yeah. Milwaukee just runs their organization. They build their team well. That's the one thing that they do compared to these other teams. Other teams stack up their talent. With Milwaukee, they know how to build a roster. They know what pieces to put together. And yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, picking up Jamison Crowder at the deadline helped them.
Yeah, Crowder's a great player.
That was a big plus. But you got your Drew Holiday, and who would have thought like the rejuvenation of Lopez? Look at what he did Saturday night with Joel. No. And he has Joel's number, and he's like a thorn in his mind. But man, just like you touched on with Milwaukee, front to back, starters and bench. I wish the Sixers could implement something like that. I think we're like 2 players short on our bench of having a nice bench. Like Ryan said, it's incomplete compared to the other teams. So we'll see.
So, Let me.
I'm gonna throw.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say, guys, I'm gonna throw another team out there that nobody's really talking about, and their bench is kind of deep. People are gonna laugh at me when I say this, but the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Sacramento Kings are a team to deal with.
That's a good point because I didn't think about Sacramento. I know Sacramento obviously hasn't done much in the last 5 to 6 seasons, but you're probably right, Ryan. You're probably on to something. So I guess I would, have to be.
I think my big thing with Sacramento is, and this is the only thing I get nervous about, is just their experience. They just don't have any playoff experience, really. And that's kind of my big thing is like a lot of their main guys, I mean, not many of those guys have been in the playoffs. I mean, it's a team that's just inexperienced. And, I mean, I do think Sacramento's a great team, and I'm happy to see them succeed because that city truly could use a team like that to succeed. That's their only team. People care about the Kings, It's just, they just they haven't had a good team to really support, and now they finally have a really good team this year, and it's good to see that, kind of turning out for them. But I don't know, I feel like the inexperience is going to catch them in the behind.
No, second in the West in the standings, so
Yeah.
never know.
And everybody's sleeping on them. Nobody's talking about them. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's the way they want it. If they can get past the first round and get into the second round and make it a series, they're going to be a tough out.
Yep.
There are. Well, we got about 4 minutes and change here left on this side. In case you guys are listening on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere else, and you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to switch over to the last 20 minutes. If you go right to the website, broadstsouth.com, click on the tab where it says Sports Radio 102.9 The Game. You can go right under the picture and click on the web link there, and you'll be able to catch the final 20 minutes of the show as we'll be making that transition here in about 4 minutes. But so with that being said, also, you guys don't forget that the TBL is in full swing, full season. Week number 2 coming up, and you can save 15% on a league pass, a day pass, all right, or your yearly pass. You can save 15% with code word Broad Street, all one word, Broad Street. Save 15% off either a game day pass or a league pass, or your yearly pass. Again, your coupon code is Broad Street, all one word. So as we get ready to make the switch over here, we know there's been a lot of tampering, which I'll save over to the other side. With the NFL, it's coming closer and closer now. We're hearing about teams like CJ, obviously with the Eagles, that the Browns are possibly looking to steal him from CJ.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fuji, as we have about 2.5 minutes left, what's your thoughts on the Browns basically possibly taking CJ away?
Also, there's a report that the Broncos might take a run at CD Deuce, so I don't know. There's supposed to be some restructuring contracts, but I don't know what Howie's doing down there. Of course, Jalen's got to get paid first, but you can't let everybody walk. And, the Eagles haven't used the franchise tag in about 15 years, in which we're never an organization and never like to.
Well, speaking of, before we sign off here, did Danny Dimes really deserve that contract that he got from the Giants?
No, not at all.
Absolutely not. No.
I thought that was insane. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's insane. And we'll save that for the other side on the bonus time there. But yeah, I think that's crazy. I think that's two things we'll get into on the other side because you're the only thing you did, I guess, if you look at it, is you set the bar higher now to keep Jalen Hurts in Philly. And I know, the Eagles want to, if again, and that's Fuji's best friend, if Howie does what he's supposed to do, I would think he would want to lock up at least Jalen for the next 5 years here in Philly. But then you also have Brandon Graham, and again, we'll get into it on the other side as well, that you're talking about $6 million per year for the next 2 years, and you wonder if that's a bit too much for Brandon Graham for the final 2 years. He wants to remain his entire career here in Philly. I believe it'll happen, but it also means you have to restructure 2 contracts for the Eagles to be able to take care of business, what they need. So it's going to be a lot to get into in the bonus time. So for you guys and girls, thank you for watching. We want to make sure we get our sponsors in here as far as if you want to travel with the pros as they are coming here. Vince Rizzuto and the rest of the gang will be down here in Clearwater next week. Those trips are completely sold out, but you can check out the following trips either right through our website or you can go to phillysportstrips.com and travel with the pros and see their upcoming trips as they have a couple of road games going to Boston. They got a couple games going out to Yankees. So make sure you keep up with Vince and travel with the pros with phillysportstrips.com and Philly Sports Trips. Along with Dylan, I'm not paying attention to your green hat.
They're traveling to Toronto, though.
Yeah, I know they're traveling to Toronto.
Next
Yes,
week,
I know.
They're playing the Blue Jays next Thursday.
Yeah, I know. Locally, slick. They're not going that far
to Toronto, so we're going to cancel that.
Exactly.
Florida all day.
We're going to take your
Phillies
passport.
They know how to
never
travel.
come back to the United States again.
They know how to travel with the pros because they're traveling to go see the Blue Jays as well. So it's a win-win
That's
situation.
the only baseball team in
Clippers down.
Toronto.
Yeah, that's all right. They're not going to travel anywhere, but that's okay. That's it. Good. Yeah, good joke, but don't forget also the Tampa Joe's 9316 Anderson Road in beautiful Tampa, Florida. A hop, skip, and a jump over from the airport. So you get off the airplane, whether you come in from Southwest or anywhere else, scoot on over to Tampa Joe's. It's a fun place, some serious food, and just a great time. And it is the home of Philly to the South. All the Eagles fans, you can catch us there from September all the way through January. And speaking of next week, there will be an announcement who will be joining me out there at Tampa Joe. So make sure you tune in next week because it's going to be a big announcement coming up who's going to be joining me out there at Tampa Joe's for the season. So with that being said, I thank you for
know who it is.
Yeah, well, you can save it, Slick. But for the moment, we'd like to thank everyone who joined us here live on the show. Please continue the action over on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game. And with that being said, gentlemen, I thank you, and let's keep the party going on the other side.
Screenshot my face.
Oh, brother.